Mangwana ni malelepo vukenjani klekwasi vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry on Monday, the 25th of November. And that also means that Namibia is just 2 days away from its national elections, national and presidential elections. So we'll certainly be keeping you updated as hashtag Namibia Decides 2024. However, in today's top stories, Zuma appoints convicted fraudster Joe Ndhlela as MK Party national organizer. EU recalls envoy from Niger after junta accuses it of mismanaging aid. Sudan in danger of becoming a failed state, aid chief warns. Follow all of our programs on oneup2.com or DSTV 285 and GoTV 25 in Namibia, as well as Network Media Hub on YouTube. Talent Gore will also join us, our correspondent in Zimbabwe, to give us the latest news stories from there. This is Africa Good Morning. Top stories shortly.
As the holiday season draws near, ShopRite and Synergy Chatbot are delivering the Christmas spirit. Welcome at Santa's Wishlist. Follow the instructions to submit your drawing and letter to Santa. Step 1. Start by drawing a picture for Santa. And when you're done, just jot down a few details about yourself right next to it. Step 2. Scan the QR code and it will open up WhatsApp with a little message that says hashtag ShopRiteSanta. Just send that message to Santa. Or if you like, you can also type hashtag ShopRiteSanta into WhatsApp and send it to the number as indicated. Step 3. Follow the simple steps in the chatbot and submit your name and age. And most excitingly, the present you've picked from the list. Don't forget to include your physical address so Santa can find his way to you. Step 4. Once you've completed the previous steps, snap a photo of your drawing and your letter to Santa to submit your entry.
Now, remember, I'm looking forward to all the wonderful drawings and letters you'll be sending my way. See you soon, and keep spreading that holiday cheer. Ho, ho, ho!
Let's get into our top stories. As the game of musical chairs in the MK Party's leadership continues, Jacob Zuma appointed a convicted fraudster, Joe Ndhlela, as the party's national organizer. The national organizer position was previously held by former economic freedom fighter Deputy President Floyd Shivambu, who has since been appointed as the party's 5th Secretary General. Now, the MK Party said Zuma, in consultation with the party's National High Command, appointed Ndhlela as the national organizer of Umkhonto weSizwe with immediate effect. Commander Ndhlela joined the MK Party on 16 December 2023 as a volunteer. He assisted with the capturing of the signatures of members in compliance with IEC legislative prescripts for MK Party to qualify for the 2024 national elections. He also was instrumental in the development of both the National Elections Strategic Framework and the training manual for party agents. As of April 2024, he was serving in the capacity of Chief Operations Officer for the MKP, the party said. Commander Joe Ndhlela will assume the roles and responsibilities of the national organizer as prescribed by the constitution of the MK Party. The party wishes Commander Ndhlela well as he picks up the spear and assumes this important role, it said. In July 2022, Ndhlela, a one-time Premier Soccer League chief executive, was convicted by Regional Court Magistrate Willem van Wyk to 3 years imprisonment for crimes committed during his tenure at Transnet. Ndhlela committed fraud between February 1993 and late 1996, and the Companies Act contravention was committed between November 1994 and August 1997. The crimes were committed during his tenure at Transnet and led to him leaving the PSL, where he was chief executive. Under a cloud, Ndhlela resigned from the African National Congress after being a member for 40 years and joined the Patriotic Alliance. However, in July 2023, he severed ties with the PA, claiming leader Gayton Mackenzie advanced more the interests of a small clique of coloreds and individuals who are close to him. Ndhela's son, Hlamulo Ndhlela, is the MK party's spokesperson. Now, the European Union will recall its ambassador from Niger after the country's ruling military questioned an EU delegation's management of humanitarian aid meant for flood victims, the European External Action Service said on Saturday. Niger's junta stated on Friday, accusing the EU ambassador in the West African country of dividing a €1.3 million fund to assist flood victims between several international NGOs in a non-transparent manner and without collaborating with the authorities. It ordered an audit into the fund's management as a result. The European Union expresses its profound disagreement with the allegations and justifications put forward by the transitional authorities, the EEAS said in a statement. Consequently, the EU has decided to recall its ambassador from Niamey for consultations in Brussels. Niger has been under military rule since the junta seized power in the 2023 coup. Now, war-stricken Sudan is in danger of becoming another failed state because civil society is disintegrating amid a proliferation of armed groups, the head of a leading international aid agency has told the BBC. As well as the two main warring parties in Sudan, the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces, there are many smaller ethnic armies looting and going berserk on civilians, Jan Egeland, head of the Norwegian Refugee Council, said. Now the parties are tearing down their own houses. They are massacring their people, he said. For 19 months, there has been a brutal power struggle between the army and the RSF that has forced over 10 million people to flee their homes and pushed the country into the brink of starvation. In September, the World Health Organization said starvation in Sudan is almost everywhere. Soup kitchens have been forced to close due to being underfunded. Egeland said the lack of humanitarian response meant remaining sources of aid are simply delaying deaths instead of preventing them. Most of Sudan is starving. It's starving, he said, adding that starvation has been used as a method of warfare. Some food security specialists fear that as many as 2.5 million people could die from hunger by the end of this year. Egeland warned that the world is failing Sudan completely by not doing enough. He told the BBC if Europe wanted to avoid the refugee crisis, it needed to invest in aid, protection and peace on their corner of the world. Negotiators at the United Nations climate talks agreed on a $300 billion target to help developing nations adapt to climate change, but many poorer nations have dismissed the agreement as insufficient. The agreement came on Sunday, a day after the COP29 talks were supposed to end in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. Richer nations agreed to pay at least $300 billion a year by 2035 to help poorer nations make their economies more environmentally friendly and prepare for natural disasters. The number is an increase from a previous $100 billion pledge, but was still $200 billion less than the number called for by a group of 134 developing countries. A larger target of $1.3 trillion per year was also part of the deal, but most of that would come from private sources. A delegate from India, Lena Nandan, called the agreement an illusion. The amount that is proposed to be mobilized is abysmally poor. It's a paltry sum, said Nandan. This document is little more than an optical illusion. This, in our opinion, will not address the enormity of the challenge we all face. Hours earlier, delegations from small island states and the least developed nations walked out of negotiations on the funding package, saying their climate finance interests were being ignored. We've just walked out. We came here to this COP for a fair deal. We feel that we haven't been heard, said Cedric Schuster, the Samoan chairman of the Alliance of Small Island States, a coalition of nations threatened by rising seas. Now, the current deal is unacceptable for us. We need to speak to other developing countries and decide what to do, Evans Njewa, chair of the Least Developed Countries Group, said. And in the last of our top stories, Amnesty International has condemned the abduction in Kenya of prominent Ugandan opposition politician Kizza Besigye and his subsequent arraignment before a military court in Kampala. The rights group said the action is part of a growing and worrying trend of transnational repression, with governments violating human rights beyond their borders. It accused Uganda of systematically cracking down on opposition political parties. Amnesty International strongly believes that Dr. Besige's abduction is designed to send a chilling message to those whose opinions dissent from the Ugandan government, the group said in a statement. Besige's wife had earlier reported that her husband was abducted in Nairobi and is being held in a Kampala military jail. Besige A was in Nairobi for the book launch of Kenyan politician Martha Karua. A similar experience was endured by a 36A Forum for Democratic Change of Besige's political party in Kisumu 4 months ago and clandestinely handed over to the government back home. The group was recently granted bail after being charged with treason. Besige has run against Yoweri Museveni in 4 elections and lost each time, though he claims fraud and voter intimidation for his losses. Those have been our top stories on Africa. Good morning. After the break, we talk to talent Gore about the latest news stories in Zimbabwe. Stay with us.
Only free range. What's right for our laying hens is right for you. Only local, never imported. Only date-stamped eggshells so you know it's still fresh. The only eggs to choose.
All right, it's time for us to talk to talent Gore in Zimbabwe. Talent Wamkase. Tamuka hairdo now. Getting straight into your first story. A Zambian legislator who reportedly escaped from a hospital in August this year has been apprehended by Zimbabwean police after having been on the run for more than 3 months. Tell us more.
Yes, in a statement, the Zambia's Home Affairs Minister said that Emmanuel J. Banda, who escaped from lawful custody in Zambia, was arrested in Zimbabwe. The Zambian government in August this year offered a 2 million kwacha reward for information on the whereabouts of the legislator after his disappearance. But facing charges of aggravated robbery, attempted murder, and escape from lawful custody, evaded authorities from Chipata General Hospital on August 4 this year. Apparently, he was actually in the custody of the prisoner officers, but he then escaped from them, and he was now living in Zimbabwe, and he was apprehended in a flat in the Avenues area, which is in the Harare Central Business District, which is where he was apprehended. Someone alerted the police that there was a fugitive in Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwean police acted swiftly and they apprehended Banda, who then was given over to the Zambian authorities.
All right. Very interesting story indeed. Now, lawmakers, in fact, about the story, we'll probably get an update from Mike Situla this week, and we'll make sure that we update our viewers from the Zambian side of the story as well. Now, moving on, lawmakers have called on the government to introduce 2 distinct driver's licenses for automatic and manual vehicles to curb corrupt practices at the Vehicle Inspection Department. Tell us more.
Yes, lawmakers, speaking in Parliament last week, lawmakers have said that there was need for the government to introduce 2 distinctive driver's licenses for manual and automatic vehicles. Apparently in Zimbabwe, if one wants a driver's license, they have to go through their lessons and they have to drive, or they have to learn how to drive using a manual vehicle. But the lawmakers are saying that this has caused corruption at the Vehicle Inspection Department, given that most people now, they find it difficult to drive a manual car, and most of the cars which are now found in Zimbabwe, most of them are automatic cars. So there was no need for the government to continue requiring people to be able to drive manual cars. They now have to introduce a particular segment in which those who want to learn how to drive using automatic cars are able to do so, and they are able to go to.
All right. It seems like Talent's network got stuck there, but she did manage to bring us the latest stories from Zimbabwe. We certainly look forward to hearing from her later in the week. Let's have a look at the weather. Let's get into our economic news stories. Yuri Borisov, the head of the Russian state space corporation Roscosmos, revealed on Friday that Russia has extended an offer to a few friendly nations to build spaceports on their soil. As reported by Sputnik, Yuri Borisov also revealed that some of the countries the Kremlin intends to partner with on this initiative, which would also be very, very beneficial to them, are those closer to the equator. Today, among the main partners, we can probably name countries such as India, China, and Iran. We have big plans with South Africa, with several African countries, with Algeria, Zimbabwe, with Indonesia, with Malaysia, Borisov told the Russian media. According to Borisov, Roscosmos has diversified its range of conventional services to incorporate the construction of ground infrastructure. He said that almost 70% of Roscosmos shipments went to so-called unfriendly countries before the imposition of sanctions against Russia. An official close to the development noted that Roscosmos' export strategy is now shifting and that active negotiations are taking place with both African and Southeast Asian nations. Russia has been on a campaign to strengthen its relationship in Africa. Very recently, Russia and Central African Republic signed a memorandum of cooperation, and this was in the naval area following a meeting that they had in Moscow. During the discussion, both ministers had discussed the present situation of Russian-Congolese military cooperation and joint defense projects, as well as how to implement them. Midway into the month, Uganda disclosed its intentions to get in on Russia's nuclear expansion in Africa. Now, the fishing sector has already achieved 71% of planned production for this year, with 372,286 tons of fish from January to October, around 6% more than the same period in 2023. Now, this is in Mozambique. According to the Minister of the Sea and Inland Waters and Fisheries, Lydia Cardoso, the artisanal fisheries sector was one of the largest producers, with 95% of what has been achieved so far. Let's head to the economic indicators before Ari Hogard brings us the sport. You're still with Africa. Good morning. Mr. Adi Hochad is here to bring us the latest from the sporting world. As an Arsenal fan, I am very happy, but I know I'm not 11 points clear happy, but I'm certainly happier than 4-0. Tell us more.
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, a busy sporting weekend. The football you're talking about, English Premier League, always in the news, always interesting. The big news is not maybe Liverpool leading by 11 points, but it's more Manchester City losing all that momentum. They've lost their 5th consecutive game. That's in all competitions. It's the 3rd consecutive English Premier League loss for them. So they lost at home. That's a massive loss for them against Tottenham Hotspur, 4-0. So all not well at the moment at Manchester City, but we've seen in previous seasons they a very good team, brilliant players, brilliant coach, so they will probably come back strong again. But for the moment, it is Liverpool that had a tough win. That was away to Southampton. It was number 1 against number 20, but there's not a big difference between 1 and 20, it seems. It was a tough win for Liverpool, beating Southampton by 3-2. So they've got 31 points. Manchester City now 23 points. That's 11 points clear at the top. But teams 3, 4, and 5 and 6 all winning. That is Arsenal there in action. Arsenal beating Nottingham Forest at home by 3-0, showing great form. And also Chelsea that won away against Leicester City. And that was 2-1. Brighton also a away win for them against Bournemouth, 2-1. And then Tottenham, we talked about, they 6th at the moment. They beat Manchester City 4-0. Also, a first game for Ruben Amorim. That was well documented. Also good. It was in the news quite a bit. Manchester United's new coach, so Ruben Amorim, his first game away to Ipswich. Not what he wanted, a 1-1 draw, but it's early for him still, so he'll probably do a good job at Manchester United. On to rugby news, and it is the Springboks that had a good win against Wales over the weekend. It was a good tour for them. The Springboks winning 45 points to 12. That was in Cardiff. In previous seasons, it was always tough to win in Cardiff, but Wales not doing well at the moment. The 12th consecutive loss. That is even Etzebeth driving there in that game, and they also beat Scotland and England on their tour. So a good tour for the Springboks. They're done for the season now. Ireland beat Fiji 52-17. New Zealand, they didn't have a great game, but they still beat Italy by 29-11. And also good tour for New Zealand. And then Scotland beat Australia. Good win for them, 27-13, after Australia beat Wales and England in previous weekends. And then England back after losing 5 in a row. They beat Japan by 59-14. But England are not really up where they need to be yet. They lose against the top 5 teams in the world, so it's quite comfortable for them to beat a lower ranking team like Japan. So that's all the rugby news. On to tennis news. It was the teams competition, Davis Cup. They call it the World Cup of Tennis. Italy winning again. They defend their Davis Cup title, teams title. They beat the Netherlands in the final, and that was by 2-0. Both singles games won by Italy. The hero there, Yannick Sinner, he's the world number 1. He beat Dylan Griekspoor in his singles 7-6 and 6-2. So great performance by Italy, retaining the Davis Cup teams competition for men. And then just to close off, it was the season-ending tour for the ladies PGA, LPGA in America, their biggest tournament of the year, money-wise specifically. It was the biggest prize money in history, $4 million for the winner. The winner is Jano Titikal. She's from Thailand, 22 under par, beating Angel Jin of the US by 1 shot. And world number 1, Nelly Korda, in 5th position on -15. So that's all the sports news. So have a great sport day and sport week. And we're all looking forward to this coming weekend. Sunday, it's Liverpool against Manchester City. That's going to be massive. But we'll talk sport throughout the week. Bye-bye.
I've certainly got my popcorn out for that one. Let's head to the highlights. So, Jacob Zuma appointed the convicted fraudster to be MK Party national organizer, that's Joe Ndhlela. EU recalls envoy from Niger after junta accuses it of mismanaging aid. And Russia set to launch rockets from Africa with the construction of spaceports. DSTV 2 at 5, Go TV 25, oneup2.com, and Network Media Hub on YouTube is where you can always find us. For Namibians, 2 days until the elections. May your vote echo your voice. Sweda Jakanaka.